Kids are fine.
Oh, everyone's good.
How's Mitch doing?
Oh, he's busy as heck.
Is there?
I'm getting mixed up.
Yeah.
I just
Clearing
thinking
out
that
both
she's one of
sides,
them.
taking down all the
Family,
big
they
trees.
were all storage being open.
Yes.
In behalf of the Kelly House Board of Directors, we welcome all of you here today. And it's a wonderful pleasure to have Charlie and Lance here today to share stories about all kinds of things. But I think primarily we're talking about the fishing industry and of course Charlie's wonderful carvings, which are on display at the back table, so you get a chance afterwards to take a look at these beautiful pieces. So here is Charlie, and he may introduce the subject.
The subject is me.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, we came to the coast in 1936. My grandmother raised my sister and I. We bought Tom O'Bailey's place up where Matt's Green Acres is now. We kind of starved out of Oakdale. We had 36 acres of almonds and grapes, and price went to $20 or $26 a ton. And there's no way they could pick them and make them. So they sold the place, and we come to Fort Bragg. And we went to Cleo, and we bought that, or she bought that ranch for $2,700. 10 acres all the way to the ocean. And who Dave Sperkel bought later on after I went to the service. Went to school here, graduated in 1945. Joined the Navy. They had a recruiting thing going on, so we joined the Navy. Ed was right behind me when joining, and 6 days before graduation they called me. And Doran and my other partners. And so we're sitting in the boot camp in San Diego. I looked over at Doran and I says, Doran, you think they're walking across the stage now? And a big old tear went down his cheek. And so we missed our graduation. But when we got back, we got our diplomas. And then I went to work for, that was 1946. We got out of the Navy in the fall of 1946. Went to work in Glen Blair for a while for Fred Ball and Ole Granville. And then I transferred over to 10 Mile went to work for a guy named Eddie Matthews, best boss I ever had.
Good husband too.
Yeah, he was good for me, I tell you. He was like a dad. Of course, I was age 18 then, I think. Geez, I got a tear already. Just thinking about him. No, we worked there until with the Rogers boys. It was Mike Rogers and Martin Rogers, Sylvester Rogers, John Rogers, and Boo, he did work in the woods, and Anthony Rogers. He was the baby of the boys.
What were you doing in the woods?
At that time I was on a double drum yarder. And then I went, Martin wanted to run a bulldozer, but he was the high climber, so they wouldn't let him go. He had to, so he said, Charlie, you're gonna have to learn to climb. And I thought, yeah, that'd be sounding neat to me. So he would showing me the rigging, and we even went up a tree together. He made my rope on top.
Right.
Because we were chopping. And he
Yeah.
wasn't damn sure wasn't gonna put it.
Yeah, we're gonna put his rope at risk.
Yeah. So we did. And I learned a little bit. Finally, Martin got his bulldozer, and I got the high climbing.
So were you guys running the skyline? I mean, did you have a skyline?
No,
set
it
up?
was a 1,000-foot line up to the top of the ridge, and then of course over to another block, and then
Right.
back down to the haulback. And
Yeah.
we just pull this 700-800 foot line up with one 40-foot choker on it, and just catch a log here and a log there on. Then you move the whole thing over, and go right up the gulch. Just move the double
Yeah,
drum.
big timbers though.
It was big. You'd get most of the big ones over 5 feet were always 20-foot lengths.
Right. Did you ever get any that you got to split?
No, they did that down here at the mill down here, down in Fort Bragg. They used to use black powder. I can remember them augering holes and putting powder in there, and sometimes it would shatter the hell out of them. So they made a big wedge in that Joe Gotze was on that big whirly crane they had and pick up that big log and drop it on a big wedge, looking for the crack and everything just right, and they split them that way. Then they'd get a big chainsaw and they'd rip them and so they'd fit into the mill.
So did you climb quite a few trees?
I did the landing, yeah.
And did you top it?
Oh yeah, you had to take the top out to, before you could hang any rigging on and hang the blocks. And there were some old, that one block we had, the high lead block they called it, was 1,100 pounds. It was so damn big that you'd go up a tree, you limit, and you'd ask the woods boss how high. Hopingly maybe it'd stop at 80 or 90 feet, but one time one guy was 140 feet before I got off of it. Why he wanted so high, but anyway, you take the top out and then you hang a small block about like that with a 1/4-inch line on it on the cat, and that would pull up your
Piece of hay line.
hay line. They'd pull that up and they'd put a return block up there. Then they'd hang the high lead block up in there, and then right above the big block, they would put 5 guy lines.
Right.
And if it was too high, somebody you have to put 3 more guy lines, they're called belly guys, because when they pick up a big log, the tree would start going like that.
What,
So
yeah.
you'd have to, I only did that a couple of times, because there was a spindly high pole, they'd have to do it.
Did you put a springboard in when you got up there to work off?
No,
Or did you just
I
work
worked
out
off
of
of
the spurs?
just off of the spurs.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day, that the first tree, Eddie told me, right about here now, and it was almost 30 inches through, and they had chopped it. They never had chainsaws, so
Yeah.
they had chopped that somewhere. They had a 6-foot crosscut saw that I tried, but it just never had the muscle in the arms, and it was dull anyway, so I could chop as fast as I could.
They don't call it a misery whip. for
It was a
nothing.
misery, for sure. And, but we did, about once a month. In the meantime, I was setting chokers, but
Yeah.
they'd give me $25 for taking the top out of a tree, and then $15 for all the rigging.
That's pretty good money then.
Yeah, and my regular wages,
Yeah.
$1.25. It seemed,
God, wow, it's amazing.
Yeah, but and there's a lot of prestige to that job, really. I mean, when you're the climber, as people give you respect for that. Or they think you're crazy.
sometimes they want to choose you. Get on a Saturday night, you're that big hairy buddy high climber. But yeah, Martin Rogers was just a great guy. He was like a daddy. He watched out for me, make sure I didn't make too many mistakes.
Well, you're still here. You didn't make
Yeah,
any bad
sure,
ones.
so something was. But I did that until 52. And I was living in the firehouse, taking care of the engines in the day and at night, and then I was working in the woods. And I got married. I married Harold Rose's daughter, Gail, and I had 2 boys, Mike and Mitch. Who, let's see, I lost Gail 4th of July 4 years ago. But
Yeah, and her dad, Harold Rowe now, he was quite a figure himself in Fort Bragg. I mean, he
Yeah.
owned the Golden Rule Market.
Golden
And
Rule
if you think about it, I mean, I always think of that to this day. I still think my grandmother would tell me, run down to the Golden
they
Rule,
all,
and
the locals seem to always shop at the Golden Rule. I can remember your mom.
what a name.
coming in.
I mean, it said it all, the Golden Rule Market. I used to go in there and, and Charlie's father-in-law would say, what does your grandmother need? Because that's who I would always be coming for, was for my grandmother.
Before that, he had a store at Casper,
That's the first one.
That was the first one.
And I was telling somebody this the other day, and, I was looking, and rhubarb is $2.55 a pound. Rhubarb, I mean, come on. When Harold Rowe used to get strawberries, because strawberries only used to come for a couple of weeks, and it was a high point in the Murray household because my grandfather Murray loved strawberry shortcake, so my grandmother would make the shortcake and prepare the strawberry shortcake. But when you went down to the Golden Rule Market, there was a strawberry display set up, and then next to it was a big box of rhubarb, and it said, free, make yourself a strawberry rhubarb pie.
to grow the irrigation ditches. No, it was,
So he was quite a figure in town in the fact that he, you
Harold
know,
had three brothers. They, where Homestyle Cafe is, they owned a ranch there. You know,
Right.
It ran all the way over to where the truck road was, you know.
Yeah.
And for income, they would rent out pasture to a lot of the Italians that had cows, and they'd bring the cows up. Well, those row boys were pretty good, and when the manure dried, they'd go out at night and pick up all the manure they could for fertilizer for their other field of potatoes. They were Irish, they came right from Ireland. Rose did. But also, all the boys, all three boys went to college, and both girls went to teachers college and taught school. I think they both started in Cobolo. Aunt Violet she started at Fashar Ranch at Greenwood
yeah,
and boarded there until she finally moved in. Then she was 14 years at the Little Red Schoolhouse at Camp 20. She taught the Cox boys, the girls,
oh,
Shirley and
in the
Pauline.
old days, you couldn't go by that little red schoolhouse on Willits Road without hearing about,
Oh, God.
you know, going to the one-room schoolhouse there, and there was the yarder that Fraser ran, and, you know, all of
Oh,
the,
yeah.
you know, those,
I did work a job with your Uncle Fraser. Took a top out of a tree for him, and he was rigging. He was running an AC, Ellis
Yeah,
Chalmers.
that Alley's Chalmers.
It was
yeah.
a new cat though, and he was real proud of it. He was a neat guy.
Yeah, well, he died in the tractor seat, so.
Yeah, he had the heart attack.
Yeah. And, so you were coming out of the woods, you worked in the woods till 52.
Married, and then I went fishing a few trips with the Cox boys on their dad's boat.
Elwin.
Elwin and Bobby. Bobby had bought a Macula boat called the Delta Pride,
Uh-huh.
and
Double ender.
no, it was a run tank,
Stern.
horseshoe stern like mine.
Uh-huh.
And so, you know, that fishing might be all right. Now I'd come from the woods, I was working for Roy Stoddard, and I was taking care of the truck tires for Roy Stoddard. He had
Uh-huh.
25 off-road
Yeah,
trucks, 14-foot bunks. I mean, they were, you know,
they were off-highway rigs,
they
yeah.
back 100 tons of logs at a time on that little truck road.
Yeah.
Over Pudding Creek Trestle, they had to spend $1 million because it wouldn't hold up.
I used to laugh, 45,000 board feet of green redwood rolling across it on a truck, and you gotta spend 8 years to get it back so that people could walk on it.
So anyway, the company bought Roy's, we're gonna buy Roy's trucks and Joe Rossi's. So
Yeah.
Roy had a boat down there. He said, Charlie, why don't you go down, because I told him I'd been looking at get a boat. So we went down and looked at a couple of boats. Frank Hyman's boats.
Yeah.
Frank had a lot of boats. He built 4 at one time. He was building 4 salmon trawlers at one time in the old Greater Fish House. So didn't care for that too much, but Roy, the Macula brothers had a boat called the Phyllis B. They had just rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
And Art Figueredo and John and Ernest Figueredo were gonna buy it. In the meantime, a boat called, I forgot the name. Anyway, it caught fire and burned up, and the insurance bought it, so Macula's got it, rebuilt it, and that's what Art and Ernest wanted. So I got the Phyllis B. And it was like 9 feet wide or 10 feet wide at the most, and 39 feet, or 39 feet long. So it's just like but I had that for, until 1971. And then I got another Figueredo boat that called the Laverne, had it rebuilt, sold it, and with that money I gave to Fred and Nick Macula the big boat. He started that boat. I told him, you know, could you get a boat built, you know? Well, I don't know. He had had some kind of a bad experience building a boat for Mrs. Tarantino.
Yeah.
And she wanted to change this, you know, she put money down, of course. So
Yeah.
they wouldn't take any money from me at all.
That was a Tarantino Jr.
Yeah, but when the boat's done, you've got first chance to buy it, they told me. They would not take a nickel. I was so afraid somebody was gonna buy that boat or offer so much money, and because boats were getting harder to get, prices going up, but they stuck by their word when they got all done. I said, how much will it be? How much you get for your old boat? And I said, 21,000. Okay, give me another 15,000 is yours. But they put the fuel tanks in, they put the cabinets on.
It was unbelievable, but,
They just did everything.
but you named the second boat you got, the Gale.
Yeah.
Right, because that's the boat that I went
That's
fishing.
what you're right.
I fished on the Gale with you once. I thought maybe I might like to be a commercial fisherman someday. So Charlie goes, well, why don't you come? And Mitch and I went out. And it all kind of sticks in my mind because I worked for Tony Tarantino at Alioto Fish Company. And we had just come off one of the biggest salmon years ever down there, 805 tiers or 810 tiers.
Your mother slimed or cut every one of them.
I know, I mean, she was unbelievable. She worked in the fish house and, you know, and I always thought what a tenacious woman she was to work in that cold water and that hard to, you know, to support us kids. But I hung out in the fish house and I cut salmon cheeks, but I had to cut second behind Joe Travaris.
Oh, that old Portuguese.
Joe,
It was ornery. It
yeah,
pushed
now,
you right off of the table to get them salmon heads.
well, the thing was is that Joe Travaris, you know, he was Tony's favorite. So Tony gave him first spot. And we were cutting heads. There's splitter, 22 pounds and above.
Oh, yes.
Mediums, you know, and then we went large market, medium, and smalls. I think smalls were 12 pounds and under or
Now,
something.
12, now there was, at the last, it was, the splitters were 12 pounds or up.
Well, I remember they got down to 12 pounds, but we were,
And then mediums, there was from 12 to 8, and anything under 8 was small.
you know, we called those peanuts back then, but, you know, and the fish house was just full. But Joe Travaris would get all of these. I mean, the heads were this big and the cheeks were that big around. They were outrageous, and I made money doing it. So, but I remember coming in and Tony told me what the packing order was. It was Joe Travaris, and as Joe Travaris was cutting heads, he would go, and I would notice that every once in a while, when a big slug would come through there, I'd see him, he'd toss it over into this other buggy over there. And he was doing that as he was cutting, and I kept waiting patiently. I was jigging for herring to sell to the fishermen for bait, and all of these things. And finally, Joe Travaris goes, okay. He goes, I'm done. You know, and as he walked by, he gave me his custom cheap knife,
Yeah.
and then he rolled that buggy of all of these
Oh,
big heads out for me, you know, and set me up and put his cutting board down. And I was so touched by, you know, this guy that.
He wasn't that bad then, was he?
No, and then we, you know, cut salmon backs and all of that stuff. So now you got your new boat.
Now, well, first, I'm gonna get back to that fish house. His mother and the crew there, I don't know how many tierces. You said it was 800 tierces?
Yeah, that year.
Well, a tierce is 800 pounds of filleted salmon in each tierce. And then they put the brine in it. So it probably weighs 900 to 1,000 pounds,
Yeah.
each one of those. And they did, I remember the other fish houses, when they hit 500, that was a plateau. That was the big one.
Well, the year that I went with you was the first year that salmon hit $1 a pound.
Oh, yes.
And I remember when it hit $1 a pound, the fishermen, you know, it really as if, you know, finally struck gold. And, you know, because out then a trip was 100 fish, you know, 40, 50, 100 fish, 120 fish, nice fish too, 40 pounders, gorgeous fish. And so I went out with Charlie on the old Gale, and we experienced every single condition that you could on the ocean. The ride up the coast was 3-foot chop. I was sick before we hit the Belleville. The next day, Charlie sticks his head in the wheelhouse and he yells down to me because I'm still in the rack, and he says, "Get up, I need you up here." I came up, gospel, from the wheelhouse door to the cockpit of the boat. I could hear Charlie's voice, but I could not see him. That's how foggy it was. He told me, "Go up on the flying bridge and keep an eye out." I went up on the flying bridge. I looked out, but being as I couldn't see the anchor, I said, "Why am I up here?" I went back down, walked back to the cockpit and said, "It's crazy, I can't even see the anchor." He goes, get up there. He goes, you'll know why you're up there. We suddenly sailed out into a patch of blue ocean, blue sky. It was gorgeous. Big hole in the fog, and 22 salmon boats, all trolling towards each other, with nobody. Out of the 20 boats that were coming, nobody was at the wheel. They were all in the cockpit, out in
When
the,
they're biting.
they were all running the leaders, and I'm going, oh my God, what's going on here? And suddenly we just went into the fog bank, and then we were just riding along in a pillow, and we would break out into these blue patches. And on the last day, I remember I finally said, I'm not going to throw up one more meal. You fried T-bone steaks with garlic. Up in Shelter
I must
Cove.
have had a good year.
And oh, you were having a great year. Salmon was $1 a pound, come on. So we were having T-bone steak for dinner, and I said, I'm just going to keep these steaks down. And Elwin called over to you, and he said, do you have some kind of a switch or a fuse? And you said, yeah, I got one here. And he threw his skiff over the side of the boat, and he started rowing over. I always remember because we were watching, pretty soon he started rowing faster and faster and faster, and finally he leaped out of his skiff and onto the boat. Charlie grabbed hold of the line, and the skiff, the tail end of the skiff was just about to go under like that, and the boat had a huge leak in it. Charlie goes, "El, you can't be out here with a leaky skiff." He goes, my God, he goes, I have a repair kit here. He goes, let me get it. He goes, well, patch your skiff, Elwin. Goes, I don't have time for that, Charlie. And he grabbed the fuse and he jumped in that boat and rode like a maniac back over to his boat there. And I thought, these are, I don't know if I want to be a fisherman.
Well, quite a few guys changed their mind after a trip or two. But it made a good, had a good evening. It was really good for me. I had both boys fishing with me. When I got the big boat, the Gale, I had them both on the boat. They're both out of school, and but that's when Mitch says, "No, college for me." So back to college he went to Chico. Mike stayed with me the whole time, and ended up on a drag boat, and then he went to work for the city of Fort Bragg for 19 years.
Yeah, and I'd like to just say something too. It's like, my grandfather was a machinist. He ran a machine shop at the Union Lumber Company.
Kept me going.
He did a lot of machine work for a lot of fishermen, not just Charlie White, but a lot of fishermen. And fishermen always said, oh, I won't forget about you, Doug. You'll never have to, worry about salmon or anything. But I just want to say, one of the very, very few people who always remembered
Always had
Charlie White.
Isabel and Doug. You had to keep your hand in.
Well, not only that, is my grandfather was an incredible guy. I mean, he was really good. But Charlie, is for people who, especially for, like my mother, she couldn't afford to go to the market and buy crab or salmon or something like that. Yeah, Chaz, as she always called him, was always there, with a nice piece of fish or a mess of crabs or whatever was going on at the time. Was always an extremely generous man.
What else was I gonna say? I got crib notes. Not that I was gonna forget. Oh, yeah, the barbecue.
That's what I was just about to point you, is that like Charlie is absolutely instrumental. He is a founding member.
Shop for my studio is now that I carve and stuff all the time. But I was outfitting the new boat, making all the brackets and whatever I could in that for, Bill Grader come up and he says, Charlie says, you guys are sitting around here, we're playing horseshoes when the wind would blow or something. He says, let's have a barbecue. How about going up to Joe Neer's or Garbini's and get some plate, some kind of steel and make us a barbecue pit, something that'll, with a wheel or something we can crank the grate up. And so we said, we made one. And mostly it's just fishermen and whoever wandered by, whoever had brought in short salmon or something, then it was easy to do, and look.
What, you brought in short?
Well, somebody did.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't you though, come on, I heard about that, but I've never seen it.
I can remember we went to the dumps and we went through all the old stoves and got the racks out of the ovens,
Yeah.
We made these racks so we could put a couple of, so we could flip-flop. we made that, God, pretty quick there. Bill says, you better make another one. So I said, he's gonna want it. So I made 2 more, so now we got 3. And then they moved it to Greater Park, and God, I know that last one, before, I think I built big stainless racks, put them on the cement blocks. And I think we went to 6 altogether, counting the iron ones. And there was 6,000 people at that one. The last one. That's how many plates, that's the way they counted them, how many
Right.
plates was picked up to go around. And they're still there, they're still, that was 37 years ago, I think they said.
Right, and I think that, you know, it's like something else too, is that a lot of people don't, you know, some of the mystique of Noyo has been lost. Like when we used to tie all of the boats, I'm using the royal
Yeah.
we here, but I was telling somebody not too long ago, I said, I can remember passing from graders, going from graders over to kitos. And the way that we did it was, we climbed across the boats, and we went boat to boat to boat, all the way to the outside boat on the channel side, undid the stern line,
Swing it
shoved
over.
the boat
Yeah,
over,
you could get to
swung
that.
all the way to the other side, touched up against the other boat,
Oh, yeah.
climbed onto that boat, and then just gave that boat a push, and it just went back, and there was a channel wide enough for the boat, and, you know, and if the northern light or, you know,
Yeah.
seaworthy or something was coming, you might have to pull a boat out and
That one year they had a huge northwester, and a lot of those 4 or 5 halibut schooners come in. These are like 90 foot, with a house right on the very stern.
right,
the
and
whole
2 of
thing.
them just went by.
No, really.
Yeah, a couple days ago,
It must
two
be-
two halibut
it
boats
must
went
be-
by, yeah.
But they would come in there, and they were all, used to tease the guy, cost you $16 for a haircut. Oh, come on, I said, $4 on each side. And look out, you better start.
Yeah, oh, you better, I say.
No, they
Don't be
were
messing.
all halibut heads, they called them. Good guys.
Right, but what I was, the thing that I was starting to say was is that some of these people, like Bill Grader, you mentioned Bill Grader, he came to you and he said, Charlie, build some barbecues, and you did it because Bill Grader had suggested it and he wanted you to do this, but there were times when Bill Grader kept the whole river going, basically, that through lean times and where fishermen who would have bad luck and throw a rod through their engine, and there it was. I mean, they're good fishermen, they have a good boat, they have no way to get a loan at the bank, there's no way to put an engine in it. Bill Grader says, how much is the engine? Order it through the thing, and they're,
He did, he bailed, he was a great man.
he,
But, Lance, to interrupt you, when Bill came here, he had a reduction. Remember the little Quantum against the highway, stunk terrible coming down that hill. But he wanted to start a fish house, and so he got that property from Frank Hyman. And he come talk to, I wasn't a real high line fisherman at that time, and, you know, I was starting pretty good, but John Figueredo was, and his brother Art. And so he asked him, Benny Osfeld, and this, the hot time, you know, and they said, we were pretty disgusted for the old man, oh,
Yeah.
it was.
that was tough.
Walk up there, he'd put a buggy of fish on the scale, and he'd take his glove off, throw it on the balance bar, and we never noticed what was happening. And there'd go 60 pounds of fish. But anyway, we told him, he said, if I start a fish company, you know, can I depend on you guys for some deliveries? Some deliveries. I told him, sure. So we did, and it was pretty short there. We never took any checks for a couple of months. And so Bill got started and got fish moving, and people, buyers calling him and taking the fish. And we pretty much kind of got him started like that.
Oh no, it was a very simpatico thing, you know, but I was always impressed that he remembered, you know, he always supported the fishermen,
Oh,
who
he
supported him in the beginning.
Darrell Beecham, he never would have got a boat if Bill hadn't said, you want that VJ? Go get it, he says. And the Jenny Rose, there's another, go get it.
Right, and he would provide, you know, as if you...
And he would sign the note, that's what he did, because he didn't pull that much money out of his pocket, but he would sign a note for those guys.
And he always had a job if he needed, you know, it's like he always took care of my mother. If she needed to work, he could always find a spot for her.
Both of my boys, they were sitting there sliming salmon and cutting cheeks like you. Yeah, they, a lot, those kids, there was always 8 or 10 kids, you know, 12, 14, 15 years old working in that.
And right next door was the mink food plant. I talked to people about the mink food plant. I say, we used to go in there, into the mink food plant. My dad we'd go in and we'd pick out of with the trash conveyor. You can't get a petrale sole now like we used to pick out of there. Is on the drag boat, even in the river, they do the second sort on the petrale sole.
Playbacks.
They
because
go
they're
like
small.
this. They'd hold up the ice shovel.
Yeah.
And hold the petrale sole over the ice shovel. Well, if it didn't cover the shovel, they'd just flick the shovel like that in the river.
All the smalls, they went into the mink plant.
And we would go, you know, just this incredible fish was going through this mink plant all the time, being made into food and shipped out. So it was such an intense, the support that was down there was a lot of things going on, boat building, you know, all of these different things that were relying upon this industry. That was it was a sustainable industry at one time.
There was nine steel boats being built at one time there, on both sides of the river. But of course, the government gave us, we borrowed, they were, not me, they were borrowing money from production credit. They would give you money just on suspicion if you wanted to be a fisherman.
Right.
You'd borrow. And then it, you know, it was really, then it went up to 16%, 18%. A lot of guys lost their boats.
No, I have a question for you, is that you obviously, as you were so intimately involved with the Noyo River and stuff, and when I was a kid, you know, it was the herring runs, the silvers, the grill,
Yeah.
the steelhead, and everything that ran up. Now, I have a distinct time when I really feel that the river really started to change, and I felt that was when the company got the D9 and they dug into the North Fork.
You know, Lance, that river used to run yellow with mud.
Yeah.
When the logging was up there, for sure. And, but you know, when they stopped, everything healed itself. The Sacramento, when they hydraulic mined, they said that whole Sacramento was yellow with mud from the hydraulic mining. They stopped it, and now this was 1910, before World War I even. And look at the fish that they had there over the next 50 years.
Oh, yeah, well,
So it recovers, but our silvers never recover.
well, the other thing too is when I was a kid, there wasn't a sea lion inside the mouth of the Noyo River.
Thanks to
30.
Ike Meyer and, who else was in there?
Welch.
Oh, Ray Welch. They used to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those were sea lions, or else those grebes, that cattle grebe, because they used to catch a small little salmon trout every dive they'd have. And there'd be sometimes half a dozen for
Well,
a day.
everybody had a rifle leaning inside the window on the second story in Noyo.
That helped a lot.
Well, I see those fish, those sea lions rolling sometimes in there eating fish, you know, and I say, how hard is it to get up the river? They go all
$2,000 you can throw a rock at one, the game warden told us. And $20,000 if you shot one.
Mhm. Yeah.
But they're, let's get back to the sculpturing.
Well, I was just about to say, how did you start carving?
First, Charlie, are you still fishing?
No,
Oh, you're not.
I just get in the boat sometimes with Mitch and we go out there and try and catch a crab or a rock cod or a ling cod because there's no salmon season.
The same boat, the Gale.
No,
Oh.
Mitch bought that boat for me, when Gail got dementia so bad. And, he fished it for 8 years,
Oh, you
or
did.
9 years. And then he sold it to a Portuguese family called the Betancourts. And I know you knew some of them, because some of them were from, lived in Boonville and one had lived in Fort Bragg some years, way back.
Oh, yeah.
And, so Henry Betancourt that I knew, that I fished around at Half Moon Bay, son's son, his grandson has it now.
Oh,
And it looks so spotless. It's just
Really?
perfect.
Yeah,
But he kept it up so good.
yeah. Okay, to the sculpture.
Okay, so anyway, Vernon Piper come by, and he wanted a wooden Indian. And I told him,
He would.
a wooden Indian, I don't know why, but anyway, I told him, Vern, get an old buckskin, you know, something like this, you know, that 5 feet, 6 feet tall, and because we had a wooden Indian there, some kids had gotten from college somewhere, and it was in the shop, in the studio. So, you know, if we sat down alongside this log, we cut away everything, it don't look like an Indian, we'll have an Indian. So, he's good, was good at the chainsaw, he was a faller in the woods, so he got the I'd cut here, well, okay, cut that off. Now here, that's okay, that's the head, this will be shoulders. He's looking back, he cut, it took us 2 weeks or 3 weeks. By God, we had a pretty good Indian out there, except for the face. When you look at a guy's face, you know, you go, that's, some hippie went by, he was snapping his fingers, going around, he stopped and he come in, what are you doing? He said, I took sculpture in Berkeley. I said, did you? I said, help me with this face. He said, first thing you do, you gotta remember, the furthest thing out in the face is the nose, it is the nose. You start at the nose and you cut back. So by golly, he and I sat there and we cut, but that was the best face we ever made. Thanks to that, the hippie guy. He'd come by every day and watch us sit there and carve on that wooden Indian. But I look at it now and, you know, you got the head like this and the shoulders are out and the arms are down, you know, like a mechanical doll. So we got better as we went on. Then pretty quick, I learned to use the saw better, and I started doing most all the sawing. We did a sea captain and a couple of sea captains, and then I kind of like to make a marine stuff. So I'd make a seal or pelicans or seahorse once in a while if I got the right slab of wood. Then 25 years ago, Betty Roberts, that has a book over here, asked me if I could make something for a memorial for the fisherman lost at sea. And I told him, you know, Betty, I don't know if I could do anything like that. Oh, sure you can, you know. So I really tried, and I took my time, and I had a good piece of wood and everything, and so he got that one and put it up on that pedestal. Gil Roden made the pedestal for me, and we got that thing set up on it 25 years ago, and that's what it is. So if you ever go down there, just look at the names underneath that. Every one of those guys from the 30s to when Larry Yards and Alan Deems and all those guys were lost at sea, lost on the Eureka Bar. They're all on there.
Well, that's really great, John. You know, it's a beautiful piece, it really is. You know, and you have, you know, I'm moved by your work. You know, I go and I've been into your shop, I've seen all the birds and the things that you do, you know, it's like, they're really fantastic. You know, it's like you do really beautiful work. And I'm glad that you brought some pieces so other people can enjoy them today.
I got a mermaid, but it's too big. Looks just like Dolly Parton.
Have you ever carved a bowsprit or anything? Has anybody?
You know, I've always wanted to make a figurehead like you see on the, I just haven't got the right chunk or piece of wood. I'd like to get that yellow seal back there is nutmeg. And I'd like to, I have got a nutmeg log about that big and about that high.
That's gorgeous wood.
I'd like to get, well, I've got some nautical books of figureheads, and that would be so neat to put in some kind of a restaurant or something, you know, in a corner or something.
Oh, absolutely.
Then
Yeah,
again,
you still do, like, your carving too is like, your partnership with Vernon Piper and stuff, that's been a lot of fun. I mean, you
Oh,
collect
gosh.
wood, you guys are always out getting wood and stuff like that. He's a heck of a character, and
oh boy.
that helps keep you healthy, going out there and getting that wood and bringing that stuff in.
The trees that, Vernon did a tree job, but I don't know how it's leaning, Charlie. Bring your spurs. And then, so I'd climb and put a line in the tree or something, then we'd set a block, and then we'd get the winch on the truck, and he'd fall.
Well, I have that great shot of him. He's 3 springboards high at my house doing those outlaws over my house, and Lee Green's got the cat hooked on it, and I'm taking a video of him, and he screams out from the top, "Put that goddamn video camera down and tell that cat to go ahead." And so the carving and everything that you do is just like, it's a big deal though. There's a lot goes to it. You get your wood, you collect the wood over the years,
Well,
you think about it
I
before
kinda
you do
got
it.
it in the end. Phyllis's son, Steve, runs a loading machine for Anderson.
Yes.
And he's been in Guala, and that was an old split stuff and
Yeah.
tie
Oh, yeah,
camp.
tie camp, yeah.
So they would never, any big redwood tree like that, you know, they would leave the butt maybe 25 feet because it wasn't gonna split.
Right, yeah, swell
And
one.
they'd just take the second cuts and everything like that. So every once in a while, he'll get one of those and kind of smuggle it out, and I'll come down in the morning, and there'll be this nice big round redwood log that would get it stood up. And of course, it's like, I don't know what I made him. Made his mother a few things, but Steve got a sea lion and a couple of stuff I try and make for him.
Are these seals redwood? These right here?
It's nutmeg, that's
This,
No, the little one's nutmeg. The yellow one is nutmeg.
but the large one?
All redwood.
Ah,
All
yeah,
the others are old growth redwood.
they're beautiful. I like the whiskers.
I gotta put whiskers on that little
This
one.
one, yeah.
He doesn't have whiskers.
He's very happy.
So we got, I wanted to tank that remember American Divers or something? Jacques Cousteau had a breathing device on the tank.
Scuba.
Aqualung, they call it. And so I finally talked to Gail, and she says, well, just go down and get it. And it was a dry suit. And it had a big chute in the neck, and you'd get in it, pull it in, powder yourself up. Then you'd put a big ring over your shoulders and pull this thing up and pull the hood on and have a big O-ring that would snap in this big ring, you know. And then you'd get in the water and you'd sink down, you'd hold the vent open. Your dad got one, and I took him the first time out. He got hung up in that thing. I thought I was going to tear it apart. That almost like claustrophobia. And that worked good, except there was always getting leaks, and you'd get cold as hell in that thing after 20 minutes in the
Yeah, you wear long johns.
long johns.
Wool socks.
Yeah, and so then they said, well, you always had to have help with this thing. So then I got one where you climbed on a chute in the back, and then you tied it up with a piece of rubber. And then the next one was one in the front, so you could do everything yourself. Then Louis McBroom was a highway patrol, and he come by and said, Charlie, says, you got a little bit of some time? He says, car went off in Navarro, and we don't, you know, we need somebody to go down and put a line on it. And I said, well, where's yours suit? And he says, oh, I can't do it. He says, I got a wetsuit. I don't want no wetsuit. And he said, no, he said, try it. So I got that suit on, and it was like that 3/16 foam. But holy smokers, that was the only way to go. So I went down and got the car. Nobody was in it, thank goodness. But
Yeah, I was always sorry my dad never got to dive in wetsuits, you know.
Yeah,
he
no.
would have really, he was
Yeah.
a dry suit guy, but
oh, we did a lot of diving, your dad and I, off Baxman's outside there. Trouble is, he'd always have a bottle of port wine in the
in the tube.
just to keep warm.
Oh, for God's sakes, you're gonna be out there for a while.
Oh.
To, you know, to warm yourself up when you were out there. I mean, it's like, and
Well, when we went to Alaska, there's 5 guys, Bill and I pretty much, after, my first job was in a cold storage plant, scraping ice off of the tubes in the darn place. The rest of the guys went out to work for a mining company, Nome Creek Mining Company. And Bill and I were running cat. When I finally got out there, we were running cat. Henry Smith was a mechanic in the big cat shop. We had 4 or 5 cats in the darn place. And Bill would, he was so stout. I can remember they were building a cat. We had to build some kind of a log. And he was packing those damn logs like long, 16 feet long. In the darn. 5 of us in those 2 Model A's really were a picture. We got up,
What
started,
year was this?
the 1940, the 47.
46, I think, or
47.
47.
They had just opened up the Alaska Highway about 5 or 6 weeks before for civilian travel. So we're there in these 2 Model A's, and the Mounties are looking at us like, no, we're not gonna let you go. I mean, so, you know, if you break down, we're responsible. We won't break down. We've got enough parts to fix it. And he says, one says, well, let's see. Henry Smith uncovered this thing, and we had a crankshaft and pistons. We had, okay. So we get going, and we, about 2 days or 3 days out, you know, they convoyed us. So we got about 8 cars with us, and they all took off. Of course, we're in the old Model A's behind them, and pretty quick, here was the one with Broken Springs, and we passed out 2 or 3 of them. We get up to a place called Burwash Landing, and the bridge was gone. It was just down like that in the creek, and the Mounties were there, and they said, no, you can't go over because the glacier or something had flushed this down and took the pilings out. I said, how long it'll be? And they said, no, it could be 6 weeks. Gotta get a pile driver. And Bill again says, hell, he says, that don't look too. He goes out and he's bouncing up and down. He says, pretty stout. So Henry looks at it and he says, okay. So we had a little trailer, so we pushed the trailer across, drug it up the other side, we get back and we wound him up and whoom, put the barricades back, and we went all the way to Fairbanks, not 1 car behind us. We got it all to ourselves. We got it to Fairbanks, the end of the Alaska Highway, and they go, where the hell did you guys come from? So, well, it was left from Whitehorse. Said, that road's been closed, you know. So, we must have just made it. And there we are in Fairbanks, working in that mining company, that Nome Creek Mining Company.
They were eating flightless ducks from the side of the
Oh,
road
yeah,
that
it
couldn't
was
fly
neat,
because they were
All
moldy.
kinds of ponds that they were molten in. We had slingshots now. They sealed our guns, but they messed up because I had a 30-30 and they had a lever action, the old 30-30 Model 94. And they put the seal around the, geez, take out 2 screws, you pull the stock out and it falls down on the lever. So we're in business again. We never shot a moose though. Then we'd get the slingshots and get the duck. They'd run across the water and somebody on the other side would thump one, and we had a great time. 3 weeks we were going over that highway. I've talked enough. Clyde, let's have a story from you now.
Oh, it would be very interesting, I'm sure.
I told you about the interesting story.
Clyde's gonna do it next year.
Yes, you got
Yeah,
it.
she's gonna do it.
I gotta
after
tell
you
one
with
story
us.
on Clyde when she was younger. They lived in
A
Casper.
little younger, yeah.
Anyway, Casper Mill shut down and her dad's off looking for work and finds something going on in Santa Cruz. So you own that house. You own the house there at Casper, didn't you, when you
At that time, we were in the company.
out?
Yes.
So anyway, they had 2 cars, one ran, one didn't. And they put Clyde in the one that didn't, hooked on it with a rope, and off they go to Santa Cruz. Clyde driving all the way. With about 6 kids in the car that didn't run, with sticking out of each window. Her brother Joaquin had to. Well, he'd tell that thing at least once a year to us at the coffee shop.
He loved that story.
What do you think?
Well, I want to just personally, and I know that everybody else feels the same way, thank you so much, Charlie, for coming down and talking to us. I mean, you've always been there for me my whole life. I've known you my entire life, and I think you're one of the most interesting and kind men I know, and I'm just really glad you came and shared the afternoon with us. You know, I
Oh,
truly do.
thanks, you lads. Thank you.
I think we
Well,
enjoyed
we
it.
also-
Phyllis is gonna give me a standing ovation.
I knew how to whistle through that zip that way.
Oh,
We
thank you all.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
that was
you.
wonderful. That
Very
was
much.
wonderful.
And
Absolutely enjoyed
thank
everything.
you all for being here. Next month, Bruce Levine will be on, and he's our local historian. He's here. in
I'm
Larke.
actually responsible for all these Sunday afternoon soirees. It was my idea, but I've never given one.
Well, now's your chance.
So
Well,
next
I'm only
month, it'll
doing,
be
I'm only
Bruce.
doing it because the Kelly House is publishing a new book, which is going to the printers next week, hopefully, which will have over about 250 photographs from 100 years ago.
Oh, great.
All right.
And it will be here in time for
When's it
Christmas.
gonna be? Oh,
Looks like
Christmas?
you're gonna miss that.
Probably
one,
November
Charlie.
1st, yeah.
Next month? at
No,
this-
you're not 100 years old yet.
Getting up there.
Well,
19 more.
What I will do next month is show, well, it'll be on a DVD, but it'll kind of a slideshow of all these, actually more photographs that are in the book, plus the narration by, if anybody was here when Bill Brazil talked about the Then and Now project, which is now 6 years ago, that'll be the soundtrack on it.
Oh, all right.
That's gonna be good.
So be sure to come next month, and it's the fourth Sunday, same time here. So Bruce will be on.
I'll be here.
And we thank you both again so
Oh,
much
thank
for
you,
today.
Dee, for
It was
getting a hold of me.
wonderful. It was very,
And,
very good. Yeah. And we have refreshments in the kitchen, so be sure.
Good question. Thanks for bringing that up. Oh, I bet you there's one about that. You were gonna talk about that.
Oh, he was. Oh, he was.
I tried to
There was the year that he saw that he didn't think would be good to eat. Her dad. Joe.
Joe. I
Joe.
remember Joe. I've been buying fish from Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, years ago.
Well, I only knew him when he was, I guess he shrunk dramatically.
Oh, yeah. Somewhere. So he took off and ultimately landed in Santa Cruz, and so then we all moved down there for a while.
So what was the fate of the vehicle that you steered all the way to Santa Cruz? Tell me that it got parked at
Probably steered it all the way back.
Oh my God, can't you just see, all these little kids sticking out everywhere? Oh.
No, this was some time back. We took a laundry down to Fort Bragg. We were chopping on the parts of Salmon.
Oh, darn, I've never. So,
Oh, he's busy as heck.
I'm getting mixed up
Yeah, I do
sometimes.
too.
I think that she's right.
Taking down all the big trees.
Yes.
it's exactly what she said. I remember that so
He
well.
sure, he liked my,
I'm
yeah.
glad he likes somebody.